Welcome back to On the Wild, episode number 56. I'm Anuj Basker. With me, as always, is Riley Keenan. And the Los Angeles Rams are officially Super Bowl champions. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, and the team brought it home to LA in their home stadium, defeating the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a great game. Some controversial calls at the end of the game. We'll get into that. But what were your key takeaways from the game, just to start it off?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, the very first takeaway that I come with is that the Rams brought it on offense and defense when they needed to. You know, a lot of people are going to talk about who deserved Finals MVP. I think it could have gone either way between Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald. I think we'll talk about it a little more later, but both sides of the ball, they were incredible. And there was a lot of moments in the game where it looked like the Rams might be giving it away. The Bengals are allowed to, push the lead ahead. I think there was a time when, they had a chance to go up by 2 scores, and on first down, Aaron Donald gets a sack, and on third down, they get another sack. So they never let the Bengals, increase their lead too far, and they always kept the game close. So I think it comes down a lot to coaching and Sean McVay and those guys just putting in the right system for those guys to win the game. And, all thanks goes to, or no, sorry, not all thanks, but, you got to give credit to those Bengals guys, but the Rams really brought it.
My key takeaway came in the third quarter. On Burrow's last 22 dropbacks, he got sacked 7 times. Or was it 6 times? I don't remember, but it was one of the two. 6 times. The Rams' defensive line and pass rushers really took the game over. Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, they just collapsed the pocket to where Burrow just didn't have any time to throw. You had the long pass to Chase and the long touchdown to T. Higgins, but other than that, I think he was 21 of 31 for 146 yards or something around that. So they're really able to limit Burrow and make him check it down. We saw it early in the game where, he would get the ball out quick, which is not really what the Bengals do. They're a team that likes to stretch the field. But overall, I think Aaron Donald took the game over. After that interception by Matthew Stafford, after the long touchdown to T. Higgins, on a 3rd and 3 at the 11. If the Bengals score a touchdown there, the game is blown open. They're up 11. And you don't know how the game's going to go from there. But Aaron Donald getting that sack on 3rd down, holding them to a field goal, allowing the game to stay at a 1-possession game was huge. Probably one of the biggest plays of the game. And obviously the last drive, Aaron Donald does what he does, stopping Pirine, who's 245 pounds.
Yeah.
And he was on a blocker, wrapped around and brought him back on 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1, getting on the outside of the guard, which I don't understand how that happened because he had help on the inside from the center. He could have, I'm not a football player, but, I feel like he could have played that better, the guard, but, he got around, forced Burrow into a bad pass, which almost got completed. If Pirine had dove for it, I don't know, maybe he could have made a play on it. But, like you said, credit to the Bengals. They played a great game. But the controversial call that I was talking about there was really 2 of them on both sides, was the T. Higgins
face mask
on Jalen Ramsey, and then the Logan Wilson holding on Cooper Kupp. They were both penalties. Even the holding, I get the argument of you don't want to call it there because you haven't been calling anything all game, but he did hold him. That was holding.
Yeah.
When he broke out, he kind of wrapped his arm around, and he may have not grabbed his jersey, but he was kind of holding him back. But I felt like that was a penalty, and that last drive by the Rams it's one of those drives that you're going to hear about, 20 years from now, that Cooper Kupp touchdown to put them up 23-20. That play is going to be one of those plays that you see every year when they advertise the Super Bowl. It's going to be an iconic play. He played a great game, took over that last drive, and he did what he's been doing all season. He had the greatest wide receiver season in NFL history. There's no debate. Only one other receiver has won Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP, and won the Triple Crown. That's Jerry Rice, but he did it in different years.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp did it all in one year.
All in one.
Just an amazing year, and the Rams got it done.
Yeah. And I mean, Coop's got a lot to look forward to. This is his first season with a true, talented quarterback. I don't want to, put down Jared Goff too much, but
no, let's put down Jared Goff. This shows that Jared Goff was the problem.
Yeah. I mean, it never was the defense. The offensive line has been pretty damn good all the way through. They've always had great targets and they've had solid running backs. So it showed that the quarterback room was the problem. I do want to go back to that P. Ryan play. He's got to lay out for that. It's the Super Bowl. The game's on the line, and the ball's right there. You got to lay down for that. It's a tough play because hindsight's 2020. But you look back on that play, and Uzomah was wide open on that left side. There's no one even there, so quick throw there. But hey, the left guard let Donald fly by, and not even half a second. So it comes down to Aaron Donald at the end, and I think on that play or not, you look back to a couple plays, McPherson's 8 yards away from being in field goal range. And he makes the one arm stop. So it's tough. The debate between who deserved Super Bowl MVP is tough. To me, I think I would have given it to both of them. I think Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald would be like a co-MVP. But it's tough because, Aaron Donald made every big stop he had to. I think, after that play we talked about earlier on the 3rd and 1 that they make the stop, the next 4 drives, I think the Bengals total like 11 yards. So those plays did affect them, and they weren't able to move the chains. That's another reason why I do think a lot of people talk about Joe Burrow having the better quarterback game. I think it was Matthew Stafford because at the end of the day, he was able to push the ball downfield when he really needed to. Burrow was efficient, but there were times he just couldn't make that big play.
But I don't think that was necessarily Burrow's fault. It was a matter of Stafford's offensive line was able to block Cincinnati's front, whereas Cincinnati's offensive line couldn't stop anybody on the Rams defensive line.
That is true, but at the same time, I think the Bengals shot themselves in the foot a little bit. Tyler Boyd has his first drop of the season, and then like we talked about that Donald one arm stop. Why is it not Joe Mixon running on that play?
Yeah, that's true.
You need your best running back out there if you're going for the run. But then on the other side of the ball with Cooper Kupp, like you said, he did what he's done all season. And this was more than just a Super Bowl MVP. I think this was the entire season as a culmination and giving him the award, which you could have done with Donald as well because he is that perennial force. But to go for over 400 yards, 6 touchdowns in 4 games in the playoffs, that's just absurd numbers. And, without Higbee in the lineup, without Woods, obviously, and OBJ goes down early, you knew where the ball was going, especially on that final drive. And they go 4 for 4. And they marched down the field 15 plays for 79 yards. I think it was the longest drive we've ever seen in Super Bowl history. It boggles the mind. You knew where the ball was going. He was being double teamed. He was double teamed and he was swarmed at multiple points, and he was still able to come through with the ball. And that's incredible. And without that offense, you don't win the game. But you could say the same thing for Donald. So I think a co-MVP would have been the right move, but I can't disagree with what they did. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree with Cooper Kupp getting the MVP, but I think Donald should have got it because I think Donald made 3 of the biggest plays of the game. Obviously you had that drive. It was a great drive by the offense, and Cooper Kupp took it over. But the 3rd and 3 that I mentioned earlier to keep it a 1-score game, before after the Bengals interception of Matthew Stafford, his 2nd interception, getting that sack in the 3rd and 1 and the 4th and 1 play to seal it. And I think, like you said, a co-MVP could have been, that's what I would have done. I think that's hard to do because it's voted during the game. So
and that's a big problem it's voted before the 2-minute warning. And that's when a lot of those big plays came down to. That's where the game was won in that 2-minute warning. So I think the rules should maybe change for that, but I mean, it's tough. You got to get the picks in.
If you end it as the game ends, you still have like 10 or 15 minutes before you have to announce it. That's more than enough time. With the amount of people that are watching the game, you're going to get a good amount of votes within that time frame to have a legit MVP. So yeah, they should change it to the end of the game, especially with how technology is now. Like, it's so easy to just, like a QR code on the on the broadcast or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think Donald should have got it if I were to choose one, but you can't argue with Cooper Kupp, and he had a great game. Yeah.
I think too, like the fact that, I mean, if Cooper Kupp completed that pass, that would have been a pretty incredible showing to have a run, a pass, and obviously incredible receiving game. I do think though, when I think about what was the biggest play of the game, and it's hard to narrow it down because there's a ton you can choose from, I personally think it might be that Cooper Kupp 7-yard run on 4th and 1, because if you don't convert that, the Bengals are going to be able to run out the clock and take the Super Bowl in their hands. But he makes the right cut at the right time. The guy's a wide receiver, but obviously he's done a lot of those sweep runs throughout the year. But it was just incredible to see him get that edge and then get a couple yards after it. That was, to me, that was such a massive play because that allowed them to continue to drive and feel that confidence. And at the same time with Matthew Stafford, I mean, what an incredible game. I think it's his 46th game-winning drive of his career. He had 3 this postseason. The last 3 games of the postseason, it came down to those last few plays, and every single time he made it work, and he proved that he's always been a talented quarterback, and it's been the situation he's in that's held him back. And I couldn't be happier to see that he ended up getting the win.
Yeah. I also want to credit McVay a little bit because he changed the whole the way they play offense on that last drive. Before that drive, they had only had one 15-play drive the whole year. And they had a 15-play drive to close it out. More methodical approach to it. And the Rams are, a quick strike offense, though, 6 or 7 plays usually. So to change your whole offensive, game plan, which you had to because you lost Odell. Higbee didn't even play. Blanton, the backup tight end, he got hurt during the game, I'm pretty sure. You really didn't have any of your top weapons except for Cooper Kupp. So credit McVay as well. But on the topic of Stafford, I hate that this became a discussion as soon as the game ended, but is he a Hall of Famer? That's kind of like the question that's been being asked the last couple of days. There's a lot of opinions. Richard Sherman saying no. A lot of people in the media saying yes because of his arm talent. So it's a question up for debate, but what do you think? Is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer?
Listen, I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's got a lot of career left. He's got another good 5 years. He could win a couple more Super Bowls, but at this moment right now, I do believe he's a Hall of Famer. Absolutely. He finally gets a Super Bowl under his belt, and the first time he's really had a competitor team. He's thrown for 2 of the best receiving seasons we've ever seen in the NFL. It just proves that he just needs one guy and he can make it work. And at the same time, I think he's 12th all time in passing touchdowns, 12th all time in passing yards, and I think he's 11th in completions. So this guy is up there with the greatest of all time. And he was doing it on a team that, let's be real, this organization of Detroit is abysmal. It's really bad. And they haven't figured it out over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And now you put him in a situation with a good coach and a good team. That's all he needed. And he was able to get the job done. So I think he's absolutely a Hall of Famer in my book. But obviously he's got a lot of time left. So we'll see. But what do you think?
At the end of his career, we'll see. But I think he's not right now. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame just because he won a Super Bowl. Like a Super Bowl, I don't know what the criteria has changed for the Hall of Fame now to where I feel like if you win a Super Bowl, you're in, which I don't think that's fair because a Super Bowl isn't won specifically by a quarterback. Like, yeah, having a good quarterback is what puts you over the top in a lot of situations, but it takes a whole team to win a Super Bowl. You look at Matthew Stafford, like you said, he has all the stats, but individual accolades, he's never been an All-Pro. He has one Pro Bowl. I just think that he needs a little bit more to put him over the top. If he wins another Super Bowl, he wins a Super Bowl MVP. Maybe he wins an MVP next year. Who knows? Then I would say, yeah, put him in the Hall of Fame. But I compare him to Matt Ryan. But he's played one less year than Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has 10,000 more yards, 40 more touchdowns, 9 less interceptions, and he has an MVP. And he played better in his Super Bowl, although he did lose. So, and the conversation around Matt Ryan is like he's borderline. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. Like we don't know. Depends on how he ends his career, which doesn't look great right now. Yeah. But if I'm looking at it from that standpoint, I think Matt Ryan's had a better career than Matthew Stafford has. So with that being said, if he's borderline, then I would say Matthew Stafford's borderline as well. Obviously, he has a lot of time left, but right now I would say no.
Yeah, obviously this is it's a hypothetical. It's incredibly tough to answer, and we really will never know. But from your point of view as a Falcons fan and as watching, the NFC your whole life, you flip Stafford and Ryan for their careers with Atlanta and Detroit. Do you think Stafford is elevated, and do you think Matt Ryan falls to the system of Detroit, or how do you think it plays out?
I think Stafford's more talented than Matt Ryan. So if you were to switch them, then, I don't know if they win a Super Bowl, but I definitely think that Julio Jones could have been maximized a little bit more with Stafford's arm strength. And, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, all of that. So Matt Stafford is as talented as any quarterback there's ever been, but I just think his resume isn't up to par yet.
Yeah,
from
that's
an individual
true.
from an individual standpoint.
Yeah, I think it really does come down to the subjective view, I think, of how you value the quarterback and how you value the Hall of Fame. For me, it's just the fact that going into the season, let's say he never played a game with the Rams, I think we'd still be having the conversation of, is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer? And that you don't think we talk about it at all, let alone the fact that he's up there in all the leaderboards in terms of passing on a team that never, like, obviously, you look at his win-loss record, he's lost a ton more games. But you look at Eli Manning, he's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he won 2 Super Bowls, but he was never a dominant force in the NFL.
That's the thing.
He was a guy that was able to get it done.
I don't think Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, I don't think they're like Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. I think my criteria for a quarterback for being a Hall of Famer is like, if you take Super Bowls away, which is a weird thing to do because like you don't do that. But like, are they still a Hall of Fame quarterback? If you take Brady's 7 Super Bowls away, he's clearly a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning, same thing. Aaron Rodgers, same thing. I just think that to be a Hall of Famer, you should be dominant at your position during the time that you played. And I don't think Matthew Stafford has necessarily been dominant or regarded as, a top 5 of his era.
You know what? I agree with you, because the more I think about it, if we talk about NBA terms and we look at someone like Damian Lillard, who I think is in a very similar situation right now, he's one of the greatest point guards that's ever played the game. He's certainly one of the best players in the league right now, but he's got no accolades to his name. He's not he's never been all NBA first team. So, his career ends today. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. So you could say the same about Matthew Stafford, but with that Super Bowl win, I think it propels him. I don't know if it gives him the edge, but like there's still a lot of time left. I think he's going to be next year. The Rams could win the Super Bowl. I think they're going to bring back OBJ. Vaughn, I think, will resign. I'm really hesitant about Aaron Donald. I really hope he doesn't retire because I want to keep watching him every single game, just dominate. But yeah, I'll agree with you. I think he's definitely not first ballot. We can say that for sure. But I think he's got a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. But it's tough. It really comes down to what you value.
And also the criteria always changes. So like depending on the person, they'll treat you differently. Example is Terrell Owens, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Yeah. but the basketball argument you made for Damian Lillard, the Basketball Hall of Fame is different. Everybody gets into that. It's not the NBA. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame like it's the NFL Hall of Fame. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So they take into account college, the Olympics, FIBA, all of that. They take all that into account. So it's not as prestigious, I guess, but still is.
It's definitely not as prestigious, but
yeah.
And in terms of like those two and the narrative that surrounds them, it's comparable. Yeah, but yeah, obviously the NFL is far more prestigious than the NBA Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk down on my boy Kyle Lowry because he's the greatest Raptor ever, but with the way the NBA works, he's a Hall of Famer. But realistically, I don't know if he is a Hall of Famer when you really break it down.
Yeah, it's really just how you look at it. Because for me to be a Hall of Famer, you have to be dominant at your position for a period of time. And I don't think Stafford's ever done that. You look back, Eli Manning, I don't think he was ever that, or Phillip Rivers, whatever. And those guys are all borderline too. So I would say the same for Stafford right now. But overall, this NFL season was amazing. It was one of the greatest seasons I've ever seen in any sport. I put it right up there with the 2015-2016 NBA season in terms of just excitement throughout, great games in the regular season, great playoffs, and a great Super Bowl. Just like there was a great finals back in 2016, which wasn't really a good series. It was a great game 7, but
it was a brutal series, but a wonderful game 7.
Yeah. But yeah, just an amazing season all around. Congrats to the Rams. They got it done. And we got to take some credit because we've been on the Rams for over a year now, ever since they traded for Stafford. Even though we thought we jinxed them about mid-year when they got OBJ and Von Miller, we thought we jinxed them, but
they lost 3 in a row. They were looking horrible at that point.
There was a stretch where they didn't win a game for like 35 days, and we were like, all right, what's happening?
What is going on?
Yeah, but going over to the NBA, some big news happened at the trade deadline last Thursday. We obviously didn't get to cover it because we had Dan on. But James Harden is now a Philadelphia 76er. He got traded for 2 first-round picks, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond. What are your thoughts on the trade real quick before we wrap up here?
This was the trade of the deadline. And it's not just because it's a blockbuster. It's because it benefited both teams. It was a mutually beneficial deal. And although I do think Brooklyn won, let's keep this real. Brooklyn won that trade because you're getting a phenomenal shooter in Seth Curry. You're getting an interior force, which they needed in Andre Drummond. And then you get 2 future first-round picks. But then you get Ben Simmons, a guy that can run your offense, but is also going to be a huge member of your defense, which has been a problem all season. I think they lost 10 or 11 in a row. It can't shut guys down at the end of the game. He's going to be a big help. Obviously, he's going to have to work his way back into the lineup. But on the reverse side of it, James Harden is everything that Philadelphia needs. He is that shot creator that Embiid has needed for so long. It's something that Ben Simmons couldn't bring to the table. And obviously, Ben Simmons and Embiid, I think, is one of the greatest defensive duos of all time. But offensively, they just didn't mesh. And I think with James Harden there, it's going to create a very dangerous offense because he's going to be the primary ball handler there. And he's going to create a lot of division within the defense. And Embiid is, to me right now, he's second in the MVP race. I think this hurts him a little bit because bringing in Harden is a bigger force, but this is huge for both teams. I think it was a great trade, and I'm very excited to see these playoffs now because both teams were absolutely elevated with this. But what's your thought process with it?
I think it's a win-win considering Harden quit on the Nets, just like he quit on the Rockets. It's a very bad look for him because a year ago we were on here on our first episode talking about how the Nets were going to mesh with James Harden. Now, a year later, they've only played 16 games and he's on a different team, which it's a bad look for him. But I think it's a win-win considering if you really look at it, Ben Simmons, he hasn't played all year, and the 76ers have been having a great year. So if you really look at it, the 76ers really only traded Curry, Drummond, and 2 firsts for James Harden, which I think it obviously benefits them. Harden's going to come in hopefully motivated. Hopefully he can get healthy. He's been kind of nicked with injuries the last 2 years, really. I think this is a good spot for him because he doesn't have to be that primary scorer.
Yeah.
I think with Kyrie and that whole situation in Brooklyn, KD he was injured. He's been injured for a few weeks now. Harden having to take on that number 1 role, I don't think that's really what he is anymore on a consistent basis. Like he can on certain nights, you'll see the 36, 12, and 10s, but that's not a consistent thing like it was a couple of years ago when he averaged like 36 per game when he won the MVP. But I think this is a great spot for him because now, like you said, he's going to be the facilitator for Embiid. Embiid's the number 1 and number 2 option on that team. The team is gonna run through him, and Harden will be able to pick his spots when Embiid's on the bench or late in games. I think this will take a little bit of pressure off of him as well. Like we've seen in playoff games, the pressure kind of gets to him based on his past series with Houston. So yeah, I think this is a good trade for Philadelphia. I think they gave up a little bit of depth to where I think Drummond was kind of like I don't really care about Drummond, but Seth Curry is a great role player, a catch and shoot guy who can also create his own shot. We saw it in Dallas when he was in the bubble, creating shots for himself as well as being a great catch and shoot guy. Doesn't play a lot of defense, but his shot kind of makes up for that. And I think Harden not being a great defender, this is also a good spot for him because he's going to have great defenders around him. Matisse Thybulle is a great defender. Embiid's obviously a great defender inside. Tobias Harris is an okay defender, and somebody like Tyrese Maxey isn't a bad defender at all. So he'll be able to hide a little bit from his defensive efficiencies, be able to roam a little bit like he did in Houston, get the steals and whatnot. So I think it works for both teams. Simmons, it'll be something that they're gonna have to figure out with their fit. Like Harden, Kyrie, and KD was kind of a natural fit because all of them can catch and shoot, all of them can create their own shot. So there isn't really like an offensive scheme that you have to build. You can kind of just let them go out and hoop. Whereas with Ben Simmons, Kyrie, and KD, now you kind of have to figure out how they're gonna mesh. I think you have to pay the the fines that they have to pay for Kyrie to play at home. You have to pay those because they have to play games together, especially with how Ben Simmons plays. It's not like, you can just give it to him on the wing and he's gonna, create his own shot. You have to play a certain way with him, which they have to figure out. But KD and Kyrie, those two can mesh with anybody, so I'm sure they'll figure it out. Got two good role players with Curry and Drummond, so I think we've been saying this whole time, it's a win-win trade for both teams, and we'll see what happens. I think now Philadelphia, if Harden can be motivated and healthy, I would say they're my favorite to win the East, just with how Embiid's playing right now. He's so dominant. They played the Bucks last night at the time that we're recording this, and he went for 42, and they beat the Bucks, and that's without Harden. He's not coming back until after the All-Star break. So they're a scary team, but you also have Miami. You also have Milwaukee, obviously trying to repeat. Brooklyn will be there if they can stay healthy and mesh a little bit. It's gonna be an interesting playoff for the Eastern Conference. It's gonna be a fight. Yeah.
Before we move on as well, we've had a couple fun talks in this house about it. Who do you think is the bigger what if? The OKC trilogy, or not trilogy, trio. Or the Nets trio of Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, obviously?
I'd say the Nets, because
I agree. Yeah.
The Nets only played 16 games together, and they were 13-3 in those games. And in a playoff game last year when they were all playing against Boston, I think they combined for like 100 points.
Yeah.
So if they were able to play a full season together and a playoff run, that's a chip. I know when they made the trade, I know both of us were kind of like, who's going to take a step back, who's going to sacrifice. I think they could mutually sacrifice, but still each go for 30 a night. It's weird to say, but they're that good, they're that talented, they're that skilled. So I would say that that big three, because we saw the Oklahoma City Thunder big three for at least a couple of years. They made it to the finals, which is, if they were to stick together, who knows what they do. But I would say Brooklyn.
Yeah, I agree with you, because on one hand, with OKC, they're all very young guys. They're all in their, 23 and under at the time. So you never really, Harden was a six man. So you don't really know if they're ever going to reach the peak that they did of their careers. Harden maybe would have stayed a six man. Westbrook would have never had that, triple double type of career. We never would have seen that from him. And he also wouldn't have had a mentality change once KD leaves, obviously, because that's, he became a bit more of a dog after that. And with the Nets, you get three guys that are in the prime of their careers coming together at once. And like you said, playing just 16 games together and going 13-3, that team, that roster was incredible. And obviously the depth necessarily wasn't there, but I don't think you needed it with those three at the front. And obviously Joe Harris there, Patty Mills was a great pickup as well. But it's just, it's sad to see as well, because we talk about, who's going to be the one to take a step back. Well, Harden did. He took a step back and he became the facilitator, and Kyrie did the same. And knowing that he's going to have to create his own shot, but he's going to have to take a step back from being the facilitator. They did everything that was necessary to be that championship team, except for staying healthy and obviously not quitting on each other. So to me, that's got to be the biggest what if, because like I said, we don't really know what we had with OKC. We knew exactly what we had with Brooklyn.
Yeah, Oklahoma City had a lot of time to grow. So I feel like, but I guess and the West was getting good as well. Mm-hmm. So you never know with, what would happen there. But, well, I guess the East is getting better now too. So I don't know. Both of them are great what ifs, but definitely go Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below, and we will see you all next week. Take it easy.
Stay well.
Peace.